Hi, everyone. I am Michael Hingson, the host of Unstoppable Mindset, where inclusion, diversity, and the unexpected meet. Today, which one do we get? Mostly unexpected, which is anything that doesn't directly have to do with inclusion or diversity, but you never know where we might go with it all, so we'll see. Anyway, our guest today is Randi-Lee Bowslaugh, who actually was on our podcast, well, now years ago, as a result of one of the Potapalooza episodes. And we kind of encountered each other because we both share a publicist, Mickey Mickelson, who I sent an announcement to saying, tell everybody that you serve that we're always looking for podcast guests. And guess who showed up? There's Randi-Lee. So here we are. Yeah, I know. Isn't it great? So here we are. And Randi-Lee, welcome. Well, we'll call you Randy, right? To Unstoppable Mindset. We're glad you're here.
Thanks. I am so glad to come back. And I find it funny that I also, send Mickey hey, my podcast is looking for guests. And who comes on my show? Well, you.
Turnabout's fair play. Randy is, among other things, an author, and we're going to talk about some of those books and so on. But let's start, like I love to do. Tell us about kind of the early Randy growing up.
Well, the early Randy, back in the day.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yes, it feels like it now.
Yeah.
So, growing up, I guess I would say I was your typical kid, but looking back and knowing what I know now, I was definitely not a typical child. I loved the same things most kids do, playing in the mud and writing. Yep, loved writing at the young age, making movies, all that jazz. And then as I got older into my teen years, that's when I dealt with some depression that just keeps following me around. Yep. And then graduated high school, went to college, graduated from that a couple times.
How come a couple times?
Well, I took the first program I took, it was called Pre-Community Services. So by the time I had to actually apply to college, it was like 2 months before college would start. There wasn't a lot of options left open. So I kind of picked something that I'm like, okay, it's still open, looks kind of interesting. So I went with that. But it was just like a 1-year certificate program. And so from that, I was like, okay, I need to figure out a real program to take. So I looked around and I found one that had a lot of similar classes because I didn't want to do a lot of repeat of stuff. And so I took Community and Justice Services, which was a lot of fun. Never thought that was going to be what I took, but I did. From there, learned psychology was amazing. So I took some university psychology and got into social service work for a few years before I was like, oh my goodness, the amount of governmental red tape here, I am out.
And we should explain Randy is from Canada.
Yes.
Originally Toronto, right?
No. Toronto's about 2 hours north of me.
What town?
I am in Welland.
Welland, okay. Is that where you're from originally?
Well, I grew up in St. Catharines, which is still the same region as Welland. So Welland is part of, how many? We got 12 municipalities, something like that, called the Niagara region. And we encompass Niagara Falls.
Got it.
Yes.
So anyway, you went off and did this other program in college. Then what did you do?
So from there, I was like, I'm going to be a probation officer. That's what I decided I was going to be. But at that time, you needed to have a bachelor's degree. So I started doing university. And of course, by the time I was burnt out from social services, they had changed and you didn't need a bachelor degree anymore, but I was over it and I didn't want to do it anymore. Yeah. Awesome.
So
So I worked as an employment counselor at 2 different spots for a total of, I want to say, around 6-ish years, give or take. Before I burnt out and went, oh my goodness, I am done with social services through like government agencies. I can do a lot more help and just talking to people about my story or writing about it. I can be a lot more useful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I quit there. At that time, I also had cancer, so that was
Well,
fun.
that's no fun.
Right? It was not a good time at all. Um, but you can ask me more about that after. One train of thought at a time, or else I'll get totally distracted. Um, so from there, I was actually a personal trainer. Had my own little business for a while there, doing personal training and kickboxing because I was competing in kickboxing.
Tell me
Um,
about I don't know much about kickboxing. Tell me about that.
yeah, so I started doing that, oh, many moons ago now, it feels like.
And
And
what is it exactly?
it is kicking and punching people.
Oh, well, okay.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right, now we
Um,
know the kind of person you are. Okay.
exactly. It, there's different styles. So, like, depending what style of it you do is going to depend on the rules. But basically, you're kicking and punching people in the fronts of their body from the knees up to the head.
Got it.
Basically, for the most part. There's a few variations of rules depending if you're doing like K1 or low kick or whatever. So, um, yeah, that was awesome. I competed nationally a couple times. I went to Worlds, I went to the Pan Americans. It was so much fun. I keep telling my husband one day I'm going to do it again, and he keeps telling me to remember that my body is broken now, and I can't.
It's broken now.
Yeah, it's a few years ago. Um, Probably, I guess it would have been around 2022 when COVID started to release its hold on Canada, because we took forever. Um, I started getting all these aches and pains, and there were days that I literally couldn't get myself up off the ground. It was ridiculous. So lots of doctor's appointments, lots of testing, and so there is arthritis in both
Mm.
my sacroiliac joints, which are pretty important when you're kickboxing because that's your hips and that's
Yep.
how you move. So really hard when the doctors tell you don't jostle those more because that's where it already is. And I'm like, oh, cool, cool. And then yeah, and then fibromyalgia was the other diagnosis
Mm.
they gave me. So there's just days that I don't really want to move much. I've been getting for the past year and a half now, been getting nerve ablation. So that is basically when they stick really long needles into your spine, like between your vertebrae into your nerves, and they burn them so that they don't send pain signals to your brain.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the easy version of it.
well, maybe with all this pain, it's time to go into chess.
Right? I mean, I was in chess club in grade 8, so
Well, there you go. See?
I know how to play it. I don't know if I'm good at it anymore.
Well, well, anyway, um, as I recall, you got diagnosed with autism also, right?
Yes, I did. So remember, I was like, hey, I thought I was a typical kid, but really I was not. That explains it. So I
How
was.
how was it manifested? How do you manifest that it was different and you weren't really typical, even though you thought you were?
Well, I feel like first when you're living it and people aren't telling you different, you don't realize that
Hmm.
anything is different. Because I did well enough at school. I had some friends, but where I went to school specifically, it was a very small school, and there was like 5 girls in my class. So basically, you were all forced to just be friends with each other. And it wasn't until as we got older and they started. I remember this one year, I think it was like grade 5. And they're all talking about having dates to the fun fair, which is just like a little carnival, and they all want to have dates. And I'm like, why? I don't why. But things like that where I was like, as I got older, you could kind of see more. But when I was younger, manifested a lot in sensory overload that ended up in meltdowns and yelling and screaming and people telling my mom, "Oh, you need to discipline her more. She's just spoiled." And my mom's like, "I didn't tell her no, so I don't know what you're talking about."
So, how old were you when you were finally properly diagnosed?
So I'm 38 now. I'm gonna say 32, 33. It's
Interesting.
it's pretty
I've
recent.
I've talked to a number of people on this podcast who were diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum, if you will, or having autism, in their adult lives. And they kind of, a lot of them say, well, we noticed that there was something different about me, but I didn't know what it was. And they were very uncomfortable, but eventually realized that, well, not realized, but discovered through diagnosis that they had autism. And, obviously the part of the issue is we're better at it now than we used to be.
Yes. That is a huge part. I will say I totally had those same feelings more as a teenager. The older I
Mm-hmm.
got, the further away from your typical teenager, and
Mm-hmm.
the more I could tell I didn't really fit in, right? Like I didn't understand their little inside jokes. I didn't understand again the whole dating thing. Ugh.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that where you're like, well, you're 15, you should be going out doing that. I'm like, can I just stay home and go to bed? Like, I'm in bed by 10. Why would I go out? I have a
Yeah.
routine. And that's not typical of a teenager. So I definitely felt it more at the older I got as opposed to when I was really little. Um, and I think a big thing with the late diagnosis is it happens a lot more with females. A
Mm.
lot
Yeah, I've
of
heard that.
what, yeah, a lot of what they like researched and stuff when autism first became a thing, it was all in boys. So all the research and all their kind of stuff is all based around how a boy would show it. So boys are more likely to rock back and forth, say, as their stim, whereas girls, we're more likely to maybe. So I have a little piece of Lego here that I'm playing with. We're more likely to do things that are more easily hidden. So we're still doing the same thing, but we're doing it in a smaller way so that, it's not as noticeable and people are like, okay, well that's not big, so that's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And girls are also more likely to, a feminine quality is being quiet and staying to yourself. So when girls are just quiet and reserved, well, that's just feminine, so you're fine. Not, oh, you don't know how to interact in the social situation, so you don't want to talk. Like you don't know what to say, you are confused, right? It's perceived very differently.
Yeah. And I have heard that before
Yeah.
from people. I didn't know it, but I've heard it from several people on this podcast, and
There you go.
I appreciate it. And it's important to know. But I think that people keep talking about how autism is on the increase, and I wonder how much that really is true, as opposed to how much better we are at diagnosing it now.
I think that's exactly what it is we're better at diagnosing it. I don't think it's necessarily on an increase. I think it's
Hmm.
always been there because like I really should have been diagnosed back in the 90s,
Yeah.
right? Like everybody my age who's getting diagnosed now would have been diagnosed in the 90s, but they weren't as good at it. They didn't know what to look for. And so now that they know more what to look for and we can a lot of times articulate for ourselves. Like when they're asking me, then the psychologist was asking me the questions, I can articulate for myself what I was like, how I felt, how I learned to figure out how to cope. Because by the time you're older, you've learned ways to just figure it out. You've had no choice. Doesn't mean it's been easy, but you've had no choice but to figure it out.
I realize it's not the same, but conceptually, people who happen to have dyslexia are the same sort of thing. They've got to figure it out. And
Yeah.
they do. And many of them do. Even though they have this thing where the brain doesn't necessarily accurately communicate or easily communicate what the eye is seeing and recognize it. So people learn to deal with it and to cope. But
Yes.
but yeah, it is one of those things that we have to deal with.
Exactly. And I was interviewing somebody on my show a little bit ago, and they were dyslexic. And that's what they said. They said, I learned to deal with it because I didn't know. She was older than me, so she would have been in school, I want to say maybe in the 60s, 70s, something like that.
Hmm.
And so you just didn't complain, right? You
Hmm.
didn't you didn't talk back, you didn't complain, you just figured it out. And so that's what she did until later when finally I want to say maybe she was in college and she finally told a professor and they're like, "You might have dyslexia." And that would explain a lot. It's like, "Oh, wow."
Well, and again, it wasn't something that people understood until
Yes.
later as well.
Exactly. I know. I remember when my kid was in kindergarten, she's going to be 19 next week. Um, but it was all about phonics. That's how they were
Mm,
teaching the kids to learn. They weren't teaching them any other way. They were doing phonics. So they sent all the phonics books home and she could not grasp it. Not
hmm
not because of dyslexia, I don't think, but she could not grasp like phonetically what things sounded like.
mm.
So we had to come up with a different way. And she was later diagnosed with like a reading writing disability, but they didn't name any one specific one. Um, but she still now at 19 struggles with words, especially those crazy words like knife. Why does it start with a K?
Yeah.
Like things like that that she just has to find different ways to go about it. And luckily that, talk to text now is a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Voice recognition is really pretty good these days, which
Yeah.
helps a lot.
Yeah.
Now, is she diagnosed also with autism?
Yes, she was
Uh
diagnosed
huh.
when she was 8. So,
That must have been interesting and certainly in a lot of ways a blessing because she learned about it earlier. And
yeah.
also for you, because then you could start to, and you have some other aspects of it that make it easier for you to understand, but that made it more possible for you to help her.
Yeah, so she was diagnosed before I was. It was actually her, I came out of my room one day and she goes, "Mom, if I have dyslexia, or sorry, if I have autism, I got it from you." I go, "Huh, yeah, you probably did." And that's what prompted me to go and actually find out. Um, but yeah, being able to get diagnosed earlier gives them the best opportunity to go and get support. Once we had that, diagnosis on paper, the school was like, "Oh, we can do this now. We can do that now." Whereas before they're like, "She's just being bad. We're sending her home."
What do you think about all these people who keep saying that it's all caused by vaccinations?
Um, well, number one, it's a load of hooey. There's no actual scientific research. Number two, if I had to choose my kid living in an iron lung or being autistic, I would pick being autistic.
Uh huh.
So, I mean, what's worse, being autistic or being in an iron lung or dead?
Yeah. I'd rather not be dead and I'd rather not be in an iron lung or on a respirator all the time.
Right, exactly. I mean, vaccinations absolutely don't cause it, but if they did, for some strange reason, I still would choose to vaccinate because I still would want my kid to live.
Back when I was born, it was not accepted by medical science that if you were born prematurely and put in an incubator that you could go blind because your retinas
Huh.
wouldn't properly form. It had been actually proposed, though, by one person at the Wilmer Eye Institute at Johns Hopkins University, but medical science wouldn't accept it. They kept saying too much oxygen is never a bad thing. Well, it is, actually. And today, you still can become blind, what's now called retinopathy o prematurity. Back when I was born, it was called retrolental fibroplasia. I like that much better. But
Oof.
retinopathy o prematurity, but today medical science accepts it. So if there's a premature baby and they have to put it in a pure or well, basically a pure oxygen environment, at least they know what they're dealing with and the parents are warned. But also, incidents of blindness are a lot less in part because you don't have to give a child a pure oxygen environment for 24 hours a day. You can even not do it for a short period of time every day, and the incidence of blindness goes down to zero.
Wow, I did not know that. That is so interesting.
But when I was born, you were put in an incubator and it was pure oxygen environment, and that is what caused my blindness and
Huh.
the blindness in so many other children who were born prematurely back in the baby boomer era, that the average age of blind people in the country actually, well, dropped from 67 to 65 years of age. That's how many premature kids were born who became blind.
Wow. Isn't it interesting how far along science has come?
Mm-hmm.
I find it so interesting when I look back because I always like to say, in all reality, medicine is just a baby, right? Like the big breakthroughs really didn't come till the 1900s when things were being more discovered. And that's very recent in the grand scheme of history of everything. So I find it, yeah, it's intriguing.
And we're still learning a lot. And there's
Yes,
still so much to learn. Medicine still is very much a baby in so many ways. There's so
yeah,
many things that we are learning about, but don't really know totally yet by any standard.
exactly. Like they don't know what actually causes autism. They have ideas, but they don't know. And even like fibromyalgia, there's these two factions of people that say that's just because they gave up. They don't know what's wrong with you, so they just give you that label. Sort of, but it is a real thing. So just because they don't know what causes it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
What are
It
the
just
symptoms of
means
it?
um pain, lots of
Oh,
pain.
okay.
I mean, there's other things, but my biggest thing is just pain. All over body pain.
Hmm.
And it hurts to move. So,
So getting a hammer and sticking your thumb out and then hitting your thumb with the hammer isn't going to really make that much of a difference. You're still
no,
going to
it will
feel
not.
pain all over anyway, huh?
Exactly.
Oh, well, it
Yeah.
was an idea.
I appreciate that.
I've had friends with migraines, and I say, you want to get rid of the migraine pain, put your finger down, get a hammer, hit it. You won't have a
Right?
migraine anymore. Yeah, yeah.
Well, you're
Uh
too
huh.
busy because your finger hurts too much. I
Right,
get it.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, the bottom line is that I appreciate that all the pain is there, and hopefully those are the kinds of things that at some point we'll learn to deal with and fix, just like cancer, which we still are learning so much about.
Exactly. Right. And that's the thing. And that's why I say medicine's a baby because we're still learning. We still don't know. The human body is so intricate.
Yeah. Well, you 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 had a lot of depression and depressive thoughts when you were growing up. What was that from?
That's a great question. I mean, there definitely were some mitigating factors, but a lot of times depression doesn't necessarily have a root. Like it doesn't have a cause. It just your brain is not firing all of the proper channels and
Mm-hmm.
proper um happy hormones. My brain is not working right now. But when I was a teenager, there definitely was some issues. I mean, again, talked about not feeling like I belonged. I mean, that's going to put
That's
anybody
good.
into
Yeah.
a horrible mindset, right? You don't feel like you belong. What is wrong with me? Why can't I fit in? Why don't I understand these things? Why don't people like me? Right? So that's kind of a spiral on its own. And then at the time, my brother, who was 4 years older than me, he was in and out of jail. He was doing drugs, and that just caused chaos in the house. And then my mom's ex-husband, he was also an alcoholic, so just
Mm.
lots of chaos. You never knew what to expect, and autism likes to know what to expect. We
Yeah.
like routine. We like to know what's going to come. So, again, all these different layers, but ultimately, I think, you know, I have depression because my brain is not quite wired correctly. And then you add in all those other layers, and it makes for a really bad soup.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Do you still have depression sort of kind of
Yes,
things from time? Do you do from time to
definitely.
time? Yeah.
Yeah, so I take antidepressants every day.
Mm.
So they keep me from going really down. So what I like to say, because I actually had a bit of a depression over the summer because there was just so much chaos in the house. We were renovating, which it turned out amazing, but it was just a lot. So I like to say, without the medication, the depression goes woo really far down. Like it
Yeah.
just, bottoms out. With the antidepressants, it goes down, but at a manageable level, where then you can still, because I've done a lot of therapy. So it goes down, but the antidepressants keep it at a level where you can still go, I am going to use one of my coping strategies. Yes, I can do that. Whereas without the antidepressants, you're so far down, you're like, coping strategies don't work. I don't care. They're not going to do anything.
Right. Well, So you said your brother was in and out of jail and drugs and all that sort of stuff. So
Hmm.
whatever happened to him?
He died.
Oh,
Um, what are we? We're 2025, 4 years ago now. So he
from
drug
what?
overdose.
Drug overdose. Mm.
Yeah. So, um, it was something that I always assumed was going to happen because, I mean, when you're living that lifestyle, obviously it wasn't the phone call I wanted to receive, but I mean, for years, every time there'd be like a news report about it, I'd look to see if it was his name because I figured
Mm.
that's how I was going to find out. Um, Luckily, I got a phone call instead of reading in the newspaper. I guess that was kind of a nicer way to find out. Um, but yeah, so 4 years ago, back in May.
Hmm. And so now, did your brother, or was he ever diagnosed with autism or any of those sorts of things, or was it just totally different?
Um, I want to say he had anxiety. He might have had other stuff too, but he did have an anxiety prescription at one point, I know. Because the one nice thing about being in jail is that they do have some supports to try and
Yeah.
figure out how to get you healthy and back on the street and not be a reoffender. It doesn't always work. But so I know he did have that and he suffered from panic attacks. I remember the one day I was a teenager. He was maybe 19 and he's having this full-blown panic attack. He thought he was having a heart attack kind of thing. And so he called 911 and everything and they came, they checked. They're like, "No, it's a panic attack." So he
Mm.
definitely had stuff going on. He probably also had PTSD from different things that I'm not necessarily privy to. Um, but I mean, I know that as a kid, we had different dads. So I know his dad was kind of a big jerk. My dad was definitely a big jerk to him. So there was, again, layers to him. And a lot of times, people that do drugs or alcohol, they do it to numb the pain of something else. Addiction is usually to numb the pain of something else.
Hmm.
And I don't know exactly what those things were, but definitely I'm going to say some kind of trauma and anxiety.
Yeah. Understand. Well, it's still a sad thing, and it happens all too often.
Yes.
We had a family who lived next door to us when we lived, after Karen and I got married in Mission Viejo, and they adopted a little girl whose mother was a drug addict. And so she, as a child, also was addicted. And
Yes.
it affected her behavior a lot. I haven't heard what happened to her later, but it was pretty uncontrollable. We observed some of it, and we knew it, and they could talk with us about it because we understood. But it is sad. Drugs don't help a lot at all.
No, exactly. They numb the pain for that moment, but it's definitely not the correct solution. It's not going to solve the problem and it's not going to help you in the long run.
Now, in addition to your brother, did you have other siblings?
I did. I did slash do. So I
Did slash
had
do?
yes. So I had two sisters, younger sisters. Um, the one died actually again by drugs and she was
Mm,
really sick with I'm not sure what else, but she wouldn't go to the doctor to find out.
mm.
So she died a year ago. Um, and then I have my baby sister. And my baby sister is still around and doing well.
Good. Yeah, nice to have somebody else in the family, a sibling.
Yeah, we're like 12 years apart, so it's a pretty big
Still,
gap, but
still.
it's nice now that she's an adult, it doesn't feel as big of a gap, right? When
Hmm.
she was first born and I'm, a teeny bopper and I loved her. You get the babies and you babysit and you're, oh, this is my little sister, my little doll, and dress her up. But then you get into like 17, 18 and into college and I'm in college and I've got my kid and I'm trying to do all this college stuff. So I don't have time for doing other stuff.
Yeah,
So that was harder to stay connected because she's just, she was like 10 and I'm trying to figure out college and a career and all this stuff. So
yeah.
it was
It's a
definitely,
challenge.
it was, yeah, it was definitely tough for a while when you have a huge age gap. But The older you get, the less the age gap matters.
Yeah. How long you been married?
13 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been together for 18 years.
Well, that's a long time, but that,
Yeah, yeah, that's my entire adult life. I always like to say I'm so glad I never had to date anybody else as an adult.
see, and it all works out that way. What does he
Mhm.
do?
He's a mechanic.
Oh,
Yeah, I love it because it's so expensive to get your car fixed. And I'm
I was
just
just
like,
going to say, yeah.
I go, honey, something's broken.
Yeah, I turn the key and nothing happens.
Right? I'll call him sometimes. I'll be like, oh, I don't want to forget, but there's this light on. I don't know what it means, but fix it.
Well, and the answer to that is, of course, just watch The Big Bang Theory. The check engine light's on for all 13 or 12 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Ah, gosh. But, it is a challenge, and we all have different issues. Now, is your mom still about?
Yes, actually. So my mom broke her hip
Oh no.
very recently. Yes, that's actually why we had an original date and I had to change it because she had broke her hip. So I had to go to the hospital and visit her.
Too much football, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's just too competitive there now.
Mm,
She's got they diagnosed her with osteoporosis. I'm like, okay, that makes sense because you're kind of
mm.
young for a broken hip.
Yeah.
Um, so she's doing all right now. She's around
Well,
and
that's good.
kicking. So we had to switch. My mom actually lives with me and she is on the second floor. My room is on the first floor. So I had to give her my room and my bed because I love her,
Yeah.
but I can't wait till she can walk up the stairs and I can have my bed back.
So right now she's on the first floor.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, we when we moved to New Jersey, Karen, I think I'd mentioned in the past, is in a wheelchair her whole life. We
Yes.
we built an accessible house, so we had an elevator. That was the only incremental cost to making the house accessible, because the neat thing about building an accessible home is if you're building it from scratch, it really doesn't cost anything to build accessibility in, like ramps or lower counters or
Yes.
wide doorways, but it was in an area where they only everyone had a two-story home, so we had to put an elevator in. So it's built into the mortgage, which was okay. So it's a $15,000 incremental cost.
That's not that bad.
Plus, the county engineers made it hard to get it done, but we got it in.
Mm.
But still, it actually, although assessors tend not to value those kinds of things, actually the elevator ended up being a great asset when we were selling the house, because a husband and wife who were both very short bought the house, and
Ah.
so they loved the lower counters, and also the washer and dryer were in a room on the second floor, so that all worked well.
Awesome. Oh, I love that. Yeah, we just renovated our kitchen and bathroom because the floor was rotting.
Oh
Um,
dear.
and it just by sheer how we wanted to kind of arrange the cupboards, because before the kitchen's a really big room, but it was not designed well. It was not very functional. So
Yeah,
we moved things around a little bit. And it's definitely a lot more functional for her now that she has the walker, at least until she's all the way better.
yeah.
She can actually move around the kitchen to get to the bathroom, and the bathroom door, my house is over 100 years old. So
Mm,
some of the doors and stuff, they're smaller than what they do
yeah.
now. So they widen the door to put in a real size door and stuff. I'm like, oh, so this is much more convenient for you now.
And everybody, actually.
Oh yeah, it's really great. And we got the all-in-one washer dryer, which I love, and then now it is in the kitchen, and I don't have to worry about taking laundry downstairs on those really bad days when I don't want to
Yeah,
move anymore.
yeah,
And I don't forget to switch it over because that's one of the biggest problems when you've got autism is you forget you're doing something
yeah.
and your laundry sits for 3 days, so you have to wash it again.
And it reminds you, so that helps.
Yep. So now I put it in, it washes, it dries, and then it's done.
That's cool.
Yes, I
Well,
love it.
so so your daughter with autism is, you said, 19?
She will be on Tuesday.
So What is it like raising a child with autism? You've learned to deal with it, but and that must help you in terms of some of the expectations. But what is it like?
It's so hard. It's definitely hard.
Hmm.
Now, I don't really have a typical child to base it off of because even my older one, like my stepdaughter, I wouldn't say she's typical, but she's definitely not atypical either. Like she's not on the spectrum or anything. So
Hmm.
raising the two very different. Um, and I gotta say, with Lev, it is a battle every day, and you have to, the older she gets, the more difficult it becomes because you're expecting a certain level of maturity by the time they're 19, and that's just not there. And hopefully in 10 years she will act like she's 19 because right now at 19 she's acting like she's 12-ish,
Mm.
13-ish. So it definitely helps to remind ourselves that at times, because you want to be like, but you're an adult, like go and change your clothes. What are you doing? But then you have to stop and go, wait, okay, we have to break down these steps. We have to, give clearer directions and just yeah, biggest thing is remind ourselves that she's going to be a little bit harder to deal with
Hmm.
sometimes. But a lot of the things that I've found that work for me, routine, making notes, those are things that definitely help her. And through school, luckily, she was able to, not so much through school, but through our journey with school and doctors and stuff, she went to, it's called CPRI here in Ontario, and she went there for 3 months way back when, and it helped her a lot. They finally did the psychoeducational assessment and the OT assessment, a few other things. So that helped her to understand herself and also us to understand what she needed. Um, because I hate the whole low functioning, high functioning thing, but she
Yeah.
is more severe when it comes to life skills than I am.
Hmm.
So in that part, it's tricky. Like I've always been like, you get up and you get dressed. She's like, I get up, but I'm not going anywhere. Why would I get dressed? I'm like, cause you stink. So it's just little things like that that are different between her and I. So it's a learning experience. Um, but we make it work for the most part.
So has she gone through high school?
Yes. So she finished high school. She graduated I guess it's almost 2 years ago now, a year and a
Oh.
half. She tried college. It did not go well.
Hmm.
Again, it came down to the functional social aspect of things. It just didn't work well for her. She took baking. She loved doing the baking. She was capable of doing the baking. But she could not fit into the social standards that the college wanted from their students. Um, so it was a disaster.
Mm.
That's putting
Yeah.
it lightly, but it did not go well. And so they actually gave her what's called a medical withdrawal so that we could get our tuition back past the like your deadline of getting it back.
Mm.
Because it wasn't going to work. So she's kind of figuring out what the heck she's gonna do. She tried volunteering at the cat place. That didn't. She said it was too boring, and I'm like, okay. So just trying to figure it out. We don't know where life's gonna lead at this point.
Yeah. Well, um, and maybe it's one of those things where you just kind of have to wait and see how it goes.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where we're at. We're at wait and see and work on those life skills.
Does she have any idea what she wants to do with life, or it's just not there yet?
Not there yet.
Hmm.
She loves doing art, but to do art as like a career, I think would be hard. It's deadlines.
Yeah.
So she's done some art for some of my kids' books, and they're great and people love them. But it is, I've had this one kid's book written for 2 years now, and I'm still waiting on her to finish the artwork.
Yeah.
And it's only like 10 pictures,
Mm.
but she just doesn't have a sense of deadline. If she's not in the art mood, she just doesn't do it. And I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
but I pay you to do these. Like I do actually pay her to do them because I want to incentivize her. I mean, it's good work. I'm selling it, so you should get something. But just doesn't really matter to
It
her.
doesn't really gel yet.
Yeah.
And
We'll work
whether
on
it,
it.
yeah, whether it does it remains to be seen, of course.
Exactly. We'll see as we go.
Well, so tell me about the books that you write. What kind of books do you write, and what got you started in the writing path?
So I write a lot of nonfiction. My big thing is always talking about mental illness and autism, and I love sharing that stuff because that is what I'm passionate about. That's what got me into social services. Realized I could do more with this and talking about it, right? So I write a lot about that, but it's heavy stuff. So I do intersperse like kids' books in there, just to lighten my mood. And it's fun. So I do have a few kids' books out there. But yeah, a lot is mental health. And I actually did write a book about my brother's death. It's called Goodbye Too Soon. And I got into it because of mental health. So my
Hmm.
very first book was a book of poetry. The poems were what I had written as a coping strategy. Didn't even know it was a coping strategy at the time, but as a coping strategy as a teenager, dealing with all that. So those got turned into my first book called Thoughts of a Wanderer. And then from there, I was like, I love writing. And I just kept going.
So, how many books have you written so far?
I got a count, but I want to say over 10.
Wow. Are they all nonfiction, or have you written any fiction?
I wrote one fiction. It's a collection of short, scary stories. Well, and the kids' books. I guess those are fiction too.
Hmm.
But I did a collection of short, scary stories a few years ago because I love horror.
Stephen King loves you, huh?
He was one of the first authors that I actually read the full book all the way through without complaint.
Which book?
I want to say it was it.
Oh, It. Uh huh.
Yeah.
He's an interesting writer. I haven't read much of his lately, but I'm amazed. How do people come up with these things?
I I mean, I have some pretty messed up monsters that I had in my book. I don't know
Hmm.
how we do it. Our brains are just
It
messed
just
up.
just comes up.
Yeah, our brains are just wrong.
I think the first one of his that I read was The Shining, and
Mm.
then I read Carrie, and then Salem's Lot, and it went from there. But I just have always been amazed. How do people come up with these concepts? It's just amazing.
Yeah, me for most of the ones that I wrote came from I'd be walking the dogs and I was like, "Ooh, that's an interesting tree. It looks like it has a face." And then all of a sudden, this tree that looks cool became a monster.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. This is where we're going with it." And then some of the other stories, my kid had drawn pictures, and I'm like, "Ooh, that picture looks like you're harvesting body parts and you're trying to fix stuff." So this is it just kind of happens.
Do you find that your characters end up writing the books? I've
Yes.
talked to authors, and many have said that the characters really create the stories and they write the books.
Yeah, it's hilarious because when I first started interviewing other authors and they would say that, because at the time I'd only really written nonfiction, I'm like, huh, weird. But as I got going and I started writing the scary stories or a few other short stories that I haven't published, I just wrote them. I was like, huh, the characters really do tell you what's gonna happen. This is weird.
And if you don't pay attention, they're going to get you.
Yeah, it is
Huh.
the strangest thing, and it's a phenomenon I don't know how to explain, but they really do, they come to life in your head and they
Hmm.
tell you exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. Which excuse me, is certainly understandable. It makes for a very interesting world, needless to
Yes.
say.
Yeah.
So, um, you have other books that are coming out?
Not right now, other than that one kid's book that I'm waiting for the pictures on.
Hmm.
Um, what I'm doing right now actually is I am working on turning my book Goodbye Too Soon into a screenplay
Mm,
and into an indie film.
okay. How does that work?
That's a great question. I'm in the very early stages. I'm in the very early stages, so me and my best friend, because she likes to research, she's doing all the research stuff and figuring out that side of thing. I'm focusing on writing the script right now.
Hmm.
Um, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a learning curve, and as I figure it out more, I might have to come back and tell you because I'm not 100% sure yet. But I'm gonna figure it out because I think it would be so much fun to do, and because it's such an important topic, it needs to be done. We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see what happens.
Do you write basically full time, or do you have an addition, a full time job or anything like
I
that?
have a job to pay the bills. I actually really like my job. So I work in an office, and the girls I work with, they are absolutely amazing. They are the reason I like going to work. They get me out of the house, and I get to talk to other adults, other than like I talk to adults here now, but I get to just get out and refreshed, which sounds weird that work is refreshing, but it's because of who I work with. They're amazing. Um, It'd be nice to be able to make enough money to pay all my bills through writing, but again, I think I like the whole being able to leave the house. It's kind of
Yeah.
nice.
And what kind of job do you have?
So I do scheduling.
Okay.
Yeah, I schedule different lessons and stuff.
What's the company that you work for or the office?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say.
Oh,
It's not that it's confidential, but I don't know what their rules are around their marketing. So
well, not the company, but I mean, what kind of you said education? Is it involving schooling? Is it
it's
different?
driving.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right. All right.
but I work in the office. I do
No,
not
no, no,
teach.
that's okay. All right. I get
I
it
don't think
now.
I could.
Yeah, well, that's another story. I can tell you that my opinion is that it will be a wonderful day when autonomous vehicles get to the point where they truly are reliable and we can take driving out of the hands of drivers. A lot of
Wouldn't
people will
that be
hate me for saying
interesting?
that, but it's still true. The way
Yep.
that I am absolutely convinced that the way they drive here in Victorville, I could drive as well as any of the people out there on the road right now.
Yes, sometimes I wonder, and it gives me a heart attack because I'm like, oh my gosh, would you like our business card? I think you need to come do some lessons. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
you tell
know.
them. One of my favorite comedians is Bob Newhart. Have you ever heard the Bob Newhart driving instructor?
I have not.
Oh gosh, go find it on YouTube. It's called Bob. It's Bob Newhart, the comedian,
Okay.
and it's the driving instructor. It's really hilarious. He's also got a bus driver training school and an air traffic controller one that's pretty funny. But anyway, yeah, go find the driving instructor. It's you'll love it.
Interesting.
But it is interesting to see how how people deal with some of these things, and I do think that the time will come when autonomous vehicles truly do come into their own. We're not there yet. We're sort of still on the cusp, and there's a
Yeah.
lot to be done, but it will happen, and
They're definitely
it,
working on it.
they are, and it will become a lot better when truly autonomous vehicles work as we want them to, because then we will be able to take driving out of the hands of drivers, and that'll probably be a good thing, so that we won't have nearly the accident levels that we have today.
Yes, some of them are quite high and quite nasty.
Yeah. Well, and we're getting to the point where technology helps in so many ways. So,
Yes.
that'll be pretty cool as we get there. How do you do you ever use like AI and any of the things that you do with writing? Does any of that help you with ideas, or do you utilize any of those technologies?
So I haven't really used AI for my writing, although I've used it for my uncle passed away in the summer, and my aunt was like, "Oh, can you write a eulogy based on all of these things?" And I'm like, "Sure. Hey, Chat GPT, write a eulogy with all of this stuff because I didn't actually have the time to do it or the brain power." So, I did that, and it came out, spit out something real nice, and I sent it to her. She's like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing!" I'm like, "Cool."
I have used ChatGPT to help in writing. I don't want to let it be the writer, but
Yes.
I'll ask it to write things, and I'll do it 3 or 4 times, and I'll take all the ideas that it comes up with and integrate them with my own, because I really need to be responsible for what ultimately comes out. But
Yes.
I think that ChatGPT and the other technologies that are out there do and will continue to help a great deal. I remember
Yeah.
the first time I heard about AI, it was when somebody was complaining that students are using it to write their papers and the teachers can't necessarily detect it, and that's not a good thing. And
Yeah.
immediately I thought and said, well, I don't quite see the problem. What you do is you let the students write their papers using ChatGPT. They turn them
Mhm.
in. Then you take one day and you give each student a minute and you tell them to come up and defend their paper
There you go.
without looking at it because the teacher has it.
Yeah.
Either they're going to know the subject or they're not.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Well,
a sensible thing to do.
and what I've seen and the little bits that I've kind of played around with it just to see what it'll spit out. Um, it really only gives you something worth a good mark in school, say, like a good grade, if you are giving it the information you want it to have to use.
Yeah,
So you should have already done the research and know stuff. Like I know that you can ask it and say like, um, give me some research on whatever topic. But if
right.
you've done the research, the paper will actually spit out much better. I find that if you say, I want you to do this, this, and like give it a lot of criteria, and then it spits out your paper. So, I mean, if kids are gonna use it, they've done the research, they just maybe struggle with their grammar. Like with my kid, that would have helped her immensely.
Sure.
She knows the facts, but she doesn't know how to write, an essay. Even
Yeah,
though we've tried and tried and tried, it's just not computing. There's kids out there, right? We talked about dyslexia and stuff. Like if kids can do all the research, find and source it somehow and then spit it into this machine so it can come out in a readable paper. I mean, what's to say that's bad?
well, again, what I do is a little backward from that because I'll give it a lot of information and it'll come back and it'll give me something and I'll say, give me another one. And I will get 5 or 6 of those. And then I will take what I like from each of them and put them together with my own words because I want it to be my style. And
Yeah.
I know that the large language models are getting better at emulating your individual writing style, but still, I want it to be my style. So I
Hmm.
will write the final document, but it has contributed a lot of neat ideas and a lot of things to help that make that to actually be something that is sensible and the articles or the books not well I haven't used it to write a book but the articles and other papers and other things I've written with it do come out well
Hmm.
but I'm still the one that has to approve it and make it occur. And I realize that
Exactly.
somebody who has like dyslexia, it's a little bit different story, or somebody who maybe has autism, they're going to have some problems with it. And I can appreciate that, and they may rely on it more. But you're right. She knows the facts and she gives it the information. She
Hmm.
can also figure out how to do it in such a way that she's going to get something that would be written the way she wants it written.
Exactly, right? So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I just think we need to use it as a tool, not as a crutch.
Correct.
Um, and when you're talking about AI, one thing that I do use and I absolutely love, so on my podcast, I use Riverside. Riverside will AI generate you like the little short clips that I can stick on TikTok and
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it saves me so much time.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, the clips are awesome. Sometimes I'll be like, that clip's not so good. I'm not going to use that one. But for the most part, it's pretty spot on finding the good clips to use for like TikTok shorts and stuff. So that
Yeah.
saves an immense amount of time. I do really like that AI tech.
Well, and we're all going to, as we go forward, find more and more ways that this technology will help us, but it's
Mhm.
still us that has to be in control of it. I think we're a whole heck of a long way from sentient computers that are able to do all that.
Yes, yeah, we're a little far away from the Terminator era.
Yeah, so it isn't going to happen in the near term, but we'll get there, and we'll see some things occurring. It'll just take it a while. But I think that um, writing is so fascinating. I've now written 3 books. I love it. I don't, and people have asked if I'm going to write another one, and my response right now is nothing's coming up, but something else may pop out in the future. And if it does, then
Right?
we'll do it.
Exactly. Mickey actually asked me a little bit ago, well, I wanted to know when your next book is out. And I was telling him about the script idea. We got to actually talk a little bit more, but he's like, so is your writing on pause? I'm like, well, not really, because I always have ideas. So like it is, but like it isn't, focusing on
Yeah.
one thing, but there's always going to be ideas that are going to generate that I might have to get out onto paper. Maybe not finish, but get out.
Yeah. Now, we talked about we discovered each other through Mickey.
Yes.
Mickey has also been a guest on Unstoppable Mindset. I don't remember when that episode is coming out, but we got him on. That'll be fun.
Nice. Yeah, Mickey did an episode on my show a while back now. He should probably come back and do another one, but he did one a while back. It was
There
pretty
you
awesome.
go. But I enjoy writing. I think it's fascinating. I think it's fun. I believe it's really important to be able to communicate with people. And of course, I've been a keynote speaker now for 24 years, ever since September 11th. And I realized somewhere along the line, probably, I'd say 7 or 8 years ago, it really hit home that we have a whole new generation of people who never experienced and don't know anything about September 11th. So what I love to tell people is my job now is to take people into the building with me and take them downstairs step by step, going through all the things that I experienced and coming out the other end and really being able to follow all of that so that they have a true sense of what happened, for me at least, in the World Trade Center and why it happened. The idea being that that helps to teach them more about September 11th, teach them more concepts about why it's important to truly learn emergency preparedness and not rely on reading signs and things like that, but learn truly how to have all that information. Because if you have information in your head and you're not relying on signs, if you truly know it and you know what's supposed to happen in any kind of given set of circumstances, that helps you control fear and that keeps it from overwhelming you, which is what's really important as far as I'm concerned. And that's what we did with Live Like a Guide Dog.
Yeah. And that's what we talked about on my show. So everybody go
Yeah.
watch Michael's episode on the Ride or Die show and you'll hear more about it.
There you are. See? That's important.
Yep.
Well, I want to thank you for being here. This has been a lot of fun. If people want to reach out to you and talk with you, how do they do that?
Yeah. So my website is rbwriting.ca. And then you can find me
Do that
on
once more.
rbwriting.ca.
rbwriting.ca, writing as in W-R-I-T. Okay.
Yes. And then I am on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Randi-Lee Bowslaugh, YouTube. You can either do my name or you can do Write or Die Show. And then all the podcasting platforms, you can find it on the Write or Die Show.
Spell Bowslaugh for us.
Bowslaughh.
Bowslaugh. There you go. See? So if you had some advice to give to a young person, not necessarily who's dealing with autism or whatever, but if you wanted to impart some lesson for people to take away from our show, what would it be today?
Advocate for yourself. That would be the biggest one. It's way harder than it sounds to actually truly advocate for yourself and keep going until you find answers if you're feeling like any of the things that we've talked about on the show, right? And I think that's, advocate for yourself. And if you can't, then find somebody that can advocate for you and learn to do it.
Yeah. And it's important to do that. And the fact of the matter is, in so many ways, you have to learn to advocate for yourself because no one else is really going to do it like you can. And a lot of times, no one's going to do it, period. Because their priorities are all different. So you do need to learn to be a self-advocate.
Yeah.
Well, Randy, thank you for being here. And I want to thank all of you for listening. Love to hear your thoughts about our episode today. Feel free to email me at michaelhi@accessibe.com. That's MICHAELHI at accessibe.com. And if you would please give us a 5-star rating and please review us wherever you're observing our podcast. We value your reviews and your ratings very highly. And also, if you know of anyone who ought to be a guest on Unstoppable Mindset, Randy, that goes for you as well. We would sure appreciate any introductions. We're always looking for other people who want to come on and help us discover and learn and show others that we're all more unstoppable than we think we are, and you can help make that happen. So I urge you to do that. We'd love to hear from you, and we value your input and your thoughts very highly. And again, Randy, I want to thank you for being here. This has been fun again.
Yes, thank you so much for having me back.
If you're ready to go deeper into the ideas that shape how we see ourselves and others, I have a free gift for you. Head over to michaelhingson.com and download my free ebook, Blinded by Fear. Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep choosing to live with an unstoppable mindset.